Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. In the course of this broadcast, we will sample your feedback. Yes, Senator Wanyonka.
Ayub, I think I've sat here severally where we are discussing this matter pertaining to our behavior. First of all, just like my sister, Honorable Elachi, has said, these are the only two men standing, Controller of Budget and Auditor General. For lack of a, I'm just trying to give it a light touch. Why? These two ladies have stood their ground. They have been saying it, and they have said it, and they have been saying it. I'll give you 3 examples. A country's financial management and management of their resources is as good as the systems that that country puts into place for the system to actually control how these resources are going to be managed. And about last year, it was around the month of October, we had a chance of meeting the National Intelligence Service, and we were discussing with them on the issue of oversight and how do they think we needed to look at it. And one of the comments they said, number 1, your IFMIS system is one of the weakest systems that was ever designed. Imagine those are the National Intelligence Directorate. They were telling us, unless you people fix the weakness of IFMIS, then you're going to have a problem. So we followed further and said, okay, what is the weakness of IFMIS? IFMIS is not end-to-end encrypted. Why? When the revenue is being collected by KRA, when the county governments are collecting their own source revenue, when all these monies are being collected and being distributed accordingly, there is one fallacy, and I got to learn this because I sit in the budget committee, and we were asking Mrs. Nyakango, what is it that is the problem? Because it looks like there's always people complaining about how sometimes you make pronouncements, and those pronouncements are being challenged by the executive. The executive is saying you are actually being unfair to them because you are creating a caricature of the government being full of thieves. And she said, no, that's not what I'm saying. She said, the problems that we have is that even the way the payments are being made, all right, and this somebody can check if they wanted to check from the Controller of Budget's office. The Controller of Budget actually has no say how money is withdrawn from the consolidated fund. For her, her record is to report. On top of that, you have 2 individuals who approve the payments from the consolidated fund. One is somebody who's in the Controller of Budget's office, and the other one is from Treasury. And these 2 individuals can actually say no or say yes. First, that is a loophole which was put there. So the Controller of Budget, if she came here and you asked her, are you able to say stop any withdrawal or payment of any money, she will tell you no. She has no powers.
Over that individual
completely,
who works in her office?
Completely. Okay. It's a hoax. That's one of the hoaxes. And it's not with this regime. The current government didn't start that. It came from before. Number 2, Ayub, for the first time in our country, the Controller of Budget said money is being withdrawn from the consolidated fund, and I don't know where it's going. She has said that. And then you see everybody going, oh my God, what is she saying? She's giving the facts the way they are. Third point, I see the money that has been quoted in this report. I wish I had met Collins Omulo because I know him. Let him know to discuss. There's nothing here about salaries. You people are being paid some little. Go to the county governments. The budgets are set up. They finish the discussions at the budget of the county assembly. Bring their report, the budgetary. Are you with me? The way money has been allocated at the county, they bring it and upload it at IFMIS. When it has been uploaded, you worked in the Nairobi County. When it's uploaded in the IFMIS, it now goes with different figures.
How?
I'll give it to you before we leave here. Please follow what I'm saying, Mheshimiwa. County governments are abusing and misusing more money than anything that is happening at the national government. Why? Because if the county government has received 14 billion and that money comes to the county and the budget is done, you are going to pay salaries, this, you are paying this, you are paying pending bills and everything. Yes, they take that budget from the county, if it's in Kisii, it comes, or if it's from Kericho, wherever, it comes to the treasury, there is a way they upload it. When you upload it onto the IFMI system, you are given two forms. One form that goes to the controller of budget, another that goes to the county. What the controller of budget has been flashing out is that 3/4 of the county government are actually reallocating money that has been allocated from the what? From the counties in the local, at our county governments in our sub-counties. And that is the biggest challenge that we have got in our country. So unless we close out these loopholes and we close out what is happening, the issue that Madam Elachi is talking about all, you know, members of committee members and everything, that for me, that is not even the issue anymore. How much money are we spending and where is it going?
Okay.
And I want to raise one point which a lot of my people disagree with.
Yes.
And I will tell them, why are people refusing that the government should not collect revenue using the e-citizen? Because primary kids, secondary school children, or secondary school students, if today I ask you, actually, how many students do we have? Do we have the numbers? No. And yet we are giving money for capitation using those numbers. The only reason why people are disagreeing with the President's suggestion of using e-citizen is that I don't know why the KK government sometimes explain these things to us. You see, everybody thinks you have an ulterior motive why you are doing so. Well, with implementing such a wonderful structure, do that for health. Let's have the record on who is on shift. Let us make sure we do in education. We know how many kids we have at ECD level. We know which ones we have in secondary school level. Let us find out the ratio of the student to the teachers. Okay. Let's know how many sub-counties, how many number of teachers are in every sub-county. Let us live there and look at how many students are going to the university today, which universities are taking which students, and who is able to pay. That information doesn't exist.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Maina. I'll come to Senator Veronica. I'll come to Honorable Lachan. Yes, you had a point?
Yes, I was just listening through what my senator colleague is talking about, which to a very large extent is very true. You know, unfortunately, our nation, we seem to have devolved corruption, because we must accept that we have an endemic problem of corruption in this nation. And it didn't start now. It started way back. And it's something that Kenyans must collectively now work together. I have seen the Auditor General's attempt to use the citizens' participatory approach in the audit process. And they have done it once now, where Wanjiku becomes part of the process and can flag out issues that they think they manifestly look corrupt. And we must admit that unless we are willing to correct some of these issues, it is not that we are lacking systems in Kenya. We are not lacking laws or policies. We have even deployed technology. The government has deployed technology. And if what my colleague is saying was to happen, that we know how many students we have, how many, what is the number of population that needs to be catered for in health, we would need to complete the digitalization of all the services that the government is rendering.
Yes.
So that once the inflows are corrected and captured by the system, then the audit trail becomes very easy. And the Auditor General must insist. In fact, I have seen the Auditor General's insistence on a certain amendment to the PFMA's Act, where if any recommendation is done by Parliament or recommendation is done by the Auditor General's office, the person who fails to implement that recommendation is then held accountable for failing to implement the recommendation, because the Auditor General is coming out with a report. And that report has flagged out the red. She has fired a warning shot to different departments, to ministries, because that's what I would call her audit report now. It's like firing a shot to each ministry or department and saying, we have flagged your ministry for this number of issues. Now, You either have to explain yourself on what you have done with this expenditure, and short of that, we then have to forward that file to the next level. We have a full, complete, robust system that can deliver good services to Wananchi. Unfortunately, Ayub, is the fact that as a developing nation, we have remained at the first stage of financial audit because we are asking ourselves how much money was taken out from the consolidated fund, how much was spent, where was it spent.
Right.
We are asking accounting questions. We ask accounting questions, reporting questions, verification questions. We have not moved to the place where you would say, like in Sweden, they are doing performance audit. Performance audit is where, and I think Nancy's office has tried to do about 10 of them. They have done about 1,794 financial audits. I think it's about that number, if I'm not wrong. But performance audit, they've only done to 10. Performance audit is where they look at health. What is the level of service? How good is it? It involves just beyond the accountant, the CPA. It involves other experts, like you will have environmental experts, you'll have system auditors, people who are looking into issues that are being raised. Because when I listen to my colleagues, they are talking about a performance audit which now audits the whole system. How is this system working? Does it bear? So I would say, Ayub, is we have a number of issues, and I don't think we should pretend about this audit report. I wish I could pretend, but I don't want to do that.
Yes.
I think what we ultimately need to do is for ministries to take responsibility. They are given an opportunity to explain themselves on any audit query. Give answers. And sometimes we must understand, like emergency fund that is utilized, there is some that you cannot get the paper trail. And if an auditor general doesn't have a paper, they come back flagging the issue.
Which could now
even when it is intelligence, it's supposed to be supporting the intelligence unit, and we must distance that from the normal audit that goes to the normal budget of the nation.
Okay. Honorable Lotte and Honorable Elache, coming to you. She points out what the Auditor General has presented. Let's hear what her predecessor said in 2019. Dr. Edward Ouko, then Auditor General, he said, "From where I sit, I would bring in the theory of budgeted corruption. It is our budget actually loaded with corruption?" Yes, that question. "It fits the theory of a highway which has many exit lanes, and the corrupt individuals know how to manipulate these exit lanes." Seems we have been warned, pre-warned, warned, and we seem to be forewarned about all these problems. But we need answers, Honorable Lotte. How can we gather around and converge around the answers to these problems that are mentioned?
Well, first of all, just to appreciate again these two offices, and to laud what all the colleagues sitting here have said about the Office of the Controller of Budget and the Office of the Auditor General. You know, from these two offices, we have been discussing this. We've actually now looked at even what the predecessor of the current office holders are saying about this. And I alluded earlier on in my discussion that the president noted this, and the president brought this to a PG and said the issue of budgeted corruption should stop. You know, this is the president, and we are talking about an history that has been in this country from the period when we started our constitution, 2010. Where there is a lot of corruption that is put into the budgets to incentivize the people who are sitting on the budget making process, so that from there they can be able to follow up and ensure that they get this money. When the president pronounced himself, and he actually told the cabinet secretaries, you will be held responsible. Do not be pushed by anybody in any committee to load corruption into the budgets. For me, I think that is the first thing that we want to say. This government is taking action when the president himself pronounced. The other thing that I want to say, this is money that is raised by Kenyans. The very mama bogas that we've been speaking about and the boda, these are the guys that are trying to raise through KRA appropriation in aid around 3.4 trillion, and our budget is now going to 4.1 trillion. You see, we've got a gap. And that is the gap that we will try to bridge. But let us not look at the gap. Let us look at the expenditure. When the reports finally from the Auditor General comes to Parliament, there are two institutions that are supposed to take action. And I want to say these institutions are sleeping. The DPP and the ESC. Because even when Parliament now have actually found somebody to be culpable, and that this person is supposed to be taken. All the time, there is nothing that is done by these people. Either the DPP will blame the ESSC, or they'll blame the Auditor General, or blame something is not adding up for prosecution to take place. This country from the time we actually enacted our constitution, this country has not seen a major arrest on anybody that has actually played out with our budgets. So we're talking about budget corruption, we talk about what the Auditor General said, what the control budget have said, but we have never seen anybody go locked in or money repatriated through our budgets from proceeds of crime. Yeah. Because this is a criminal act to steal money from the people that are contributing to this country. The reason, and I want to say... Is
it not concerning? Is it not concerning? When you point out a very important aspect, when recently we have seen the streak of cases that are withdrawn from the courts of law by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, including Aror Kimore Dam's collapse, and then the damning judgment given by Eunice Newto, who presided over that matter. And recently, Justice Professor Nixon Sifuna also called on the prosecution to stop the willy-nilly withdrawal of cases from courts of law, saying this is becoming a trend and culture among prosecutors in the country.
And that's what I'm saying. So even when it has come through all the process, come to Parliament, and then Parliament have actually also said, well, this needs to go on. The DPP and the ESSC are supposed to do their work. Otherwise, then we will continue talking about this for a long time. And the people that are actually rejecting the e-citizen issue, there is a criminal act for rejecting an e-citizen collection and everything else around that, because you realize that immediately we started collecting our money through a pay bill in the Huduma centers. The revenues went up very well. But when they were collecting revenues, including the counties, when they are collecting revenue manually, monies disappear. Why are people not wanting to go electronic when we know that electronic systems can be able to be effective? The reason is the people that are rejecting are not the mamambogas and the boda. The people that are rejecting are the guys that are sitting and they know their avenues, the many avenues that you say
and
there.
who are the guys?
So the many avenues that you say, they have highways of avenues to run
on the prosecution, maybe just one.
Senator, I'll come to you. We'll talk about the prosecution part. Honorable Elachi, in the end, when we talk about the budget-making process, the accountability that ought to come from Parliament where you sit, the question of prosecuting these matters in courts, they end up not being successful convictions. But in between, at the fulcrum point, is that money is lost. I mean, how do we bridge these two very contrasting points of no successful convictions, money is lost, but we have Kenyans who are by the day becoming poor and are unable to meet the cost of basic education, healthcare, and a working infrastructure?
You see, the most important thing, first of all, I'll just go back to what Senator said, is that in your system, and I will give an example and say this. So we have IFMIS in our country. And the most sad part is that you come and you upload in your financial requests that you want. After you have gone through a process where you have done a requisition and then you go to the control of budget, and after that they upload they upload, by the way, in IFMIS you upload everything after you have done the budget. That's why we have the appropriation. So it is supposed to go inconsistent with the appropriation that you put in. But then, now when you are coming to follow through what you uploaded, so you are now going to the control of budget. She was not part of all the first steps, but now you are coming to request now for money to come out because you've already uploaded it on IFMIS. And so you will come, the control of budget will follow through. The challenge comes now when it has arrived in Central Bank. It is headed to your account. When it comes on the ground, you come, you decide it was for education. It now goes for... It will go for any other thing. Now that's county government. So they will do... That is why pending bill is a crisis to them. And what I will want to plead with the president, so that we realign back all this. First of all, you remember there was a time all counties were requested to bring all their pending bills. We create a fund which we will deduct from their money anyway as national government, but ensure we pay all our contractors and suppliers, because money was released to pay, but you spend it differently.
Which is not the case at the moment.
Yes. They didn't even want. They started now bringing all manners of things. And this thing of every governor coming in and saying, these are ghost bills. That is something that should be in the end. It can never be. How come when the national government comes in, it doesn't say it's a ghost project? It continues paying. Why is yours a ghost project? That is why now I want to thank Nancy, and I want to tell her, public participation. It is time now, our budgets, before you do even audit, go to the Mwananchi, ask them, in this county, I'm told you have project 1. There was hospital, there was health clinic, there was this. I need to walk around
and see them.
So that when you are put an annex of every county, that when I came to your county, you received 40 or 10 billion.
Yeah.
You were supposed, I picked the big ones that took huge amounts, but I never saw these projects. You don't need, again, to start a case. The Mwananchi, who you said you have gone to do the project, has said and has told the Auditor General, we have no project. The other thing we should be asking ourselves and bringing in is how do we clear this word, pending bill, because there's no budget of pending bill. It was there when you were bringing that project. There was money allocated for that project. It can never turn out to be a pending bill. But lastly, is one thing we have to also appreciate and tell now the control of budget. She has to also now start going for public participation. People have come with requisition, you have agreed their money. One day, just go to that county and do public participation and tell them, we release money as control of budget, this amount. Have you seen it anywhere? So now we will start being on our feet. We will start doing the right thing. Because that is the language I think Kenyans understand. That you must have a Thomas miracle where you want to touch. So we have to touch. And it is a culture. You know, corruption for us is not a culture anymore. It is part of our way of life.
The way of life now.
And we have decided as a country, if you want to know corruption, it's not just about money. You see, now we are talking of e-citizen. I will agree with e-citizen. But the biggest challenge, even now, is teachers must sit down with even members of parliament and tell us, as I bring in CDF, now government has given you your ratio. What projects are you going to do with your ratio? So that we do not have conflict with the projects.
Overlap.
And so they will overlap. And the other thing we have to say with e-citizen, which I want to plead with government. Now you want e-citizen. Why people are fearing is because in most of the schools, we have BOM teachers. We must know how to pay those teachers, those BOM teachers. We also have our... Even in our diplomatic embassies, you see, when we started e-citizen, so you receive all the money. Remember to pay back salaries. They are in foreign countries. They are not in Kenya.
Thank you.
And those are some of the things, as you put in that system, remember, you can still have some amounts that you leave for them, but you have already known how much is that, in which ratio, for purposes of salaries, purposes of maintenance of schools, purposes of BOM teachers, and many other things. Then now you take the other loop that you want.
Thank you. Yes, Senator, I'll come to you, Veronica, on the criminal justice system. Yes, Senator.
For me, the biggest challenge that I've seen and witnessed about what is happening right now in our country is deterrence. One, all the budgets that are the Auditor General and the Controller Budget, all the data and all the information they give us, in fact, more so with the Auditor General, it is usually after the wake. It is after the effect. You have, like, right now is when we are at 2021. Under CPAC, we are at 2021, 2022. And you understand that there was an attempt before to make sure that the audited accounts are not up to the current, because that's what we would use to vote for shareable revenue. So, number one, we must make sure that all audits are up to date. And the argument, Ayub, if you ask the the Auditor General, why are we not up to date, she'll tell you, National Assembly has refused to give me money for me to employ accountants who are going to run the systems.
Constraint in her own office.
Yes. And this is the person who's supposed to monitor where our money is going. She doesn't have personnel. Number two, every time that these flagships in other countries, every time that Madam Nyakango raises an issue because she's the controller budget and she has brought it out there, if it was in another country, that is when the Ethics and the Anti-Corruption Commission moves in. People at least need to write statements. That is when senior officers in government are called for interrogation and cross-examination. What happens? She flags something. After 2 days, you see politicians just screaming and making noise about her, how she's just Lucifer's sister, and she's the one, in fact, who has been doing all these evil things and everything. My observation ever since I joined the Senate is very simple. Why are we not able to create deterrence so that anybody who wants to break the law, particularly with misuse of public funds, they fear? The feeling I have right now in our country, nobody fears what they do with public funds.
No.
Nobody fears.
Okay.
And the reality is that runs from the national government. You come to the cabinet secretaries, you go to the permanent secretaries, go to the county governments and see the things which governors are doing. They're just mind-boggling. You find somebody has taken money which was allocated that was actually supposed to be doing, for example, water. And that is what she said about. She's talked about. When these guys go to the treasury, now we know these tricks. They go to the treasury, they reallocate that money from what the budget was in the county.
And you sit, Senator, the beauty is you sit in a house that is the guardrail of the devolved system of governance.
Yes.
Oversight.
What then are you doing to oversight that?
I'll tell you this.
Because now you know the loopholes.
Thank you.
If what comes to the National Treasury and then gets back to the county is diverted for not the intended purpose, then what are you going to do about it?
Fantastic.
Being a member of a very influential committee.
Fantastic. We are drafting a law right now. In fact, about 2-3 weeks ago, we are drafting a law where we want to start. And you see the other challenge we are facing is, what did we do to Chapter 6?
On leadership and integrity.
Chapter 6 was given an interpretation, because you're a lawyer, you know this, that you can't just be flagged and told to step aside for investigation to be taken and then you're taken to court. You continue working as if nothing happened until when you are convicted.
Yes, and it's
how about
sometimes
2019 ruling by Lady Justice Mobengoge?
Yes.
But
which is that if you are accused of corruption, you are a governor, you step aside and you can't access your physical
But
office.
Ayub, that's a very low test in Kenya, which has been abused before by governments. And I want to quote the former regime. When you now come to the issue of prosecution and why it may not be succeeding, is because sometimes you can't tell the thin line that divides malicious prosecution, falsified prosecutions.
Because of political reasons. Because
of political expediency. So we need to put a guard. If you're implementing anything, it must be implemented within the framework of human rights, respect for human rights. If you're accused of stealing something, let there be supporting evidence that can then support a successful prosecution. If the DPP is not able to render that justification, that truly there is corruption here, what has been flagged, this is the far that it has gone, then it is not possible for people to be prosecuted. Now, the problem is, because of the trend that has been there, that actually somebody, if they don't like you, they witch hunt you, and they take you before the DPP, then Kenyans get confused as to whether what has been flagged, is it genuine, is it real, or is it a political witch hunt? Is it something, am I trying to control Onyonka in Kisii so that it does not ascend to the county office, to the governor's position? Or what am I trying to achieve by bringing that prosecutor? I would say that then the DPP also needs to up their game so that if they begin a prosecution, they need to be very clear that it's devoid of any witch hunt. Then people can start believing and trusting in the processes that are being done. Because ideally, what these processes should do, the audit, is to inject a lot of confidence, public confidence, into the systems of the government. And the fact that something is flagged, which is something that everybody needs to understand, the fact that something has been flagged does not necessarily mean that funds have been embezzled. It means there is a query which needs to be answered. And indeed, the Auditor General, before giving the final report, they do a draft report, issue a letter, a management letter, something they call, I think, management letter. That management letter will ask you questions. We see the expenditure of 50 million or 100 million here. What could have happened to it? We don't see any support. Management is given a chance and an opportunity, because there's no audit that is done by the Auditor General's office without the involvement of the management. They have an opportunity to explain themselves. Now, impunity is when management fails to come on board to explain every issue that has been flagged.
Senator, finish up and I'll come.
Yes, I am. I agree with you that the threshold on the prosecutions should be higher, for the simple reason that people's rights should not be violated. But let me give you two examples. We went as a committee of CPAC to Turkana. The total amount of money that we found, in fact, you remember our chairman making an announcement that this is a crime scene, where you go and find 274 million shillings has been spent on a house which is actually 4-bedroom. All right. I mean, there are certain things which you don't even have to sit down and talk about. If the Auditor General has flagged an issue and said there is no value for money, and she believes the team from office, because after all, they are the ones who are going to testify in this case, where we have seen how you find a family of a governor, the brother is the one actually who was doing the work in that facility. And it has been proven from the C12 that the family, the brother's company is the one which was given this money. What else do you want us to do? Which law do you want me to bring to the Senate to make sure that this individual is actually prosecuted? That is where EACC doesn't need to investigate anything. Let them go and look at the audited reports of all the county governments that we have done under CPAC.
Okay, Honorable Elachi, coming to you then. The case, Senator, is what you have just presented is the lamentations of a broken nation.
I mean, that's, let me tell you, Ayub, what is it? Let me ask you, Ayub, what is it, what other mechanism do you want us to put in place other than maybe e-citizen, when you have gone to a school and found that the teacher has been claiming money for 462 students when the school has only got 240?
Or when the Teacher Service Commission paid...
What do you want me to do?
Or when the Teacher Service Commission paid 466 million in salaries to dead or retired teachers.
Exactly.
Interesting. Honorable Elachi, coming to you. Let's go. That's according to the Auditor General.
But this money is also recoverable. We must have a solution-based approach.
Okay, we'll
so that we can also teach Kenyans that once you pick public officers or state officers and public officers, that finally the system can still come back and say we can recover these funds.
Okay, we will come to the solution, Senator.
To avoid...
Yeah, just hang on. I want to go to Honorable Elachi here, because when it comes to the criminal justice system, when these cases are picked up and then brought before our court of law or courts of law, and our courts of law are courts of evidence. I just want to read to you the ruling by Lady Justice Eunice Ruto in relation to the Aror Kemore Dam scandal. She said, it's tragic that a prosecutor can lose sight of a case. The prosecution in this case only managed to call 6 witnesses before they bungled up their own case. The conduct by the prosecution in this matter is a clear sight and reeks of the neglect of duty.
Yes.
Seems also on the other part, the criminal justice system, we are having problems besides losing money on this part.
Well, it is the criminal justice system because you cannot go to... First of all, before I go to court, then I have to go when I know that case is clearly a case that will start and end and bring, indeed, justice to public resources that we lost or mismanaged or... And one of the things I have not agreed to date, maybe my opinion, is that I have always said we must think as a country, since we have decided corruption is our way of life, then we go back on the drawing board and we say as a country, look,
I doubt whether we have decided that. It's some who have decided, not all.
We have decided and we do it without knowing we are doing it. It's not just about stealing money. It's not just about... I've always said corruption starts even just the way we do our own things. Very small things that we think is good. Let me give an example. So you have come, you are on a road reserve. It's a road reserve, isn't it? Because it was a road reserve and there's nothing there, fine. You'll put up a kiosk and you'll use it to have a way of life. But you should always, in your back of mind, know that I am on a road reserve, that the day Kura, Kenha will come, I don't need to struggle with them. I just need to request them. I know you are coming. We will cooperate. We will try and look. If you leave some space, allow us to continue. But the best thing you can just do there is to make that place habitable, clean. You can even add flowers because you know, you make it a place where even when I come, I feel you have taken good care of it. What will I do as a Kenyan? There is a drainage there. I will throw garbage in. I will even pour the water of all the things I'm cooking, and I want to leave someone else to come and deal with your own corruption, which you have just started. That is how small we have forgotten to look at our country. And now let us go to the bigger, where now we deal with how we now come and deal with this DPP's office. It is now when you bring a case, and as politicians have decided to deal with the case, you know that is where the problem starts in Kenya. Everything in Kenya we have decided is political, wrong for the country, wrong for our economy. We have to reach a point and say, this indeed is a value we must inculcate in ourselves, a bad culture, that when I'm given something to do, I have to do it right. I'll give you an example of Dagoretti North. So right now I'm building a lab. There is one lab, same amount. When you walk in, you realize, yes, work has been done well. When you walk on this other contractor, you are about to beat him and bring the whole thing down. And he's thinking it's a joke. So I told myself, you know, you don't need to fight. I'm about to invite him for public participation to come and tell me what is happening here and what is happening with himself before we now deal with him the way it's supposed to be dealt with. Because he thinks, because I told them, I have no problem with anyone. I have a problem when you take public resources, when one person is doing the right thing in the same area, and you want to tell me the same amount, you can't do the same thing. It cannot work that way. That is how bad we are. But you will find this person. The other challenge we face, and that's what I want now to talk to my sector, which I am trained in, the security sector. You see, when you see any person who would wish to be protected every time, please reflect in a mirror. Because I always tell all investors, you don't need police. You only need police for them to come and ensure your environment is conducive for you to move. You don't need anyone to protect you. You need to protect yourself with KRA. That is the first institution you should always respect. The second one is your business must be genuine business. But if I find you with 100 people, oh, this policeman, oh, this guy, oh, I know so-and-so, oh, I know the... I always ask myself, are you clear? Are you okay? No, you are not. There's something here you've hidden, and so you need a lot of protection. And so even in the investors that we have, for us to protect our monies and systems, because it is the systems we corrupt. That is how corruption has become very easy, because we have corrupted our system starting from immigration to where. Today, we are running a country, and I want to tell the president, Your Excellency, I want you to rein in anyone in Nairobi, especially in my constituency where we have very serious things happening and we have so many foreigners. We don't need our good police officers to stay more than 2 years.
Thank you.
They will be compromised.
Last week I was shocked. Because when the Minister of Roads stood up and said, in the last regime, there was a contract for constructing a Maram road worth 90 million per kilometer. 90 million
Where in Kenya?
it should be a road. I'll just get the road. But it's a road in Kenya. I actually picked that statement, and I was shocked that 1 kilometer of road can be constructed using 90 million shillings. It was a big shock. But then that brings me to the thing that we talk about, budgeted corruption. Sometimes we say Parliament is supposed to have flagged out those aspects. But then Parliament also depends on the technical reports from the technical officers. If a quantity surveyor says that constructing a building, a 4-room bedroom like the one that Senator Onyonka says in Turkana is worth 274 million, then there are the technical people that have been employed in this country, they have employed by the government to be able to actually give quantities of what is supposed to go into a road, into any of the structures. So one, I've actually noted, and I give an example of when I used to work with the civil society. And then we had the county governments, the county councils. I remember writing to the office of the minister about a corruption that I thought was going on in the places where I was.
Okay.
And the clerk, when the clerk got the letter, because the letter I wrote to Nairobi, the letter was relayed back to the clerk, and the clerk called me and said, "Young man, what are you doing? You want me to feed the investigators? You want me to give them money?" And I said, "No, sir, listen, I want you to be arrested because according to the public participations that I've done, this money has been embezzled." And, you know, surprisingly, he actually took his pujo, went to meet this person from the airport. He brought this person past through me and say, "How are you?" I saw that the clerk was the investigator who was supposed to come and investigate the case. And in the evening, the guy went back and the clerk came and told me, "Amekula pesa, wewe utafanya nini?" That is what is in this country. Because I have heard in many of the instances people say, when you are doing your budgets, ensure that there is money for the auditor, ensure there is money for the control budget, ensure there is money for the ESCC guy that will come, ensure there is money for the DPP, and should the case proceed to court, ensure there is money for the judge. You know, so it's like people are also prepared. People are not afraid of the consequences because the consequences are not there as long as you've got money to be able to bribe your way out.
All right.
And so what Senator Beatrice has said, my colleague has said, in terms of our culture as a nation, that is one of the things that we will need to discuss as a country. What is it that we need to do beyond what the law provides? Because even when we enact very good laws, these laws can be circumvented by the people that have got money.
Thank you.
And that's the reason why when you go to jail, you find the people that did not have money to bribe their way out are the ones that are in jail. The people that have money are not in jail.
Thank you. Honorable members of the bicameral parliament, this is the final question to you all. 2 senators, 2 members of the National Assembly. Before we sample the feedback, I start with you, Senator Veronica Maina. Because there seems to be a perpetual continuity of lamentations from elected people as well, including you. So let me quote what your former colleague, the Senate, now Governor Siaya County, Senior Counsel James Orengo, in 2019 said. This was in relation to questions from young people in Mathare who had complained about extrajudicial killing, the debt ceiling, unemployment of the youth, and many other ills that were plaguing and still are plaguing the country. Senator Orengo said, "I wanted to appeal here that sometimes we look for solutions where there are no solutions." That's from the senator. Like when you are talking about Parliament and looking for a solution in Parliament, I think you are absolutely mistaken. To you both senators, I will need a response. To the National Assembly members, your former colleague, then now a cabinet member, Moses Kuria, he said, as Parliament we have failed. As a member of Parliament and a member of the Budget Committee, we have failed Kenyans. We have told the Kenyan people this romantic story that all is well. I want to say to you, the Kenyan people, we have lied to you Kenyans, first of all. And the second thing is that we have failed in our oversight responsibility. How will this wholesale admission of failure stop from members of the bicameral parliament?
In my very own view, Ayub, I think every institution must take responsibility. There are solutions, and those solutions must be found. It should never be normal for a county government to reallocate money intended for health to a different item and then watch the citizens of that county dying because somebody was so greedy that they wanted to have some fund from that health. And we must look at our procurement processes. And Kenyans themselves must decide enough is enough when it comes to issues of corruption. The people who are working in those offices, those are Kenyans, Ayub. I don't think they are Tanzanians or Ugandans. People must now become loyal and patriotic. Institutions must take responsibility. Parliament cannot pass the buck to anybody. Because if we say every institution has failed, do we then say that our nation has failed? Our nation has not failed. There is a lot of effort being put in raising resources. Kenyans are working very hard every day. And every person who occupies a public office must now take responsibility. So let every institution do what we are calling this performance audit. How well are you doing your duties under the Constitution? And render results that are efficient and effective to the people and that bring forth the service delivery to the people. So I think Parliament has really tried to do what it's supposed to do. Okay. There is a lot of room for improvement for both the Senate and the National Assembly, but let every institution take responsibility, including the EACC. And for Kenyans, this corruption is being done not just by public officers, but even the private actors who are doing the procurement. Let everybody pull up their socks and say enough is enough.
Thank you.
For once, let's serve Kenyans.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Onyonga.
My honest observation is the answer is yes and no. But these are the challenges of democracy. The KK Alliance has a majority. In the Senate, they have a majority of the National Assembly. It is for the team, the members of the National Assembly, to be able to understand that sometimes being extremely loyal to your political party may not necessarily be taking care of the interests of the ordinary voter who voted for you. That there are times you may have to disagree with what the political party leadership wants you to do because it is right for. Because sometimes political leaders can make decisions which are self-interest. Are we doing anything to change? Yes. Now we have the oversight outfit within the Senate. I'm now able to go to Kisii and I'll be moving around in all the projects within the county government. I intend to be talking to the members of the county assembly. Yes. I will be engaging the governor on most probably a weekly basis. Anything that flags, that gives us a red flag, I will inform him.
Thank you.
The Auditor General and the Controller of Budget have their people on the ground. I believe we are beginning to deal with something about this corruption.
Thank you.
My honest observation is it easy?
Yes.
No.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Elachi.
Well, for me, I think, well, allow me now to be me. That one, Parliament is an arm of government, the third arm of government. It is time we work the same way we work in committees. You know, one of the things I have realized, we play politics at the gallery and we work in committees. Then we come and tell our supporters, oh, we have refused this. Where is your minority report from the departmental committee where you were taken? Anyone in a departmental committee who has brought us to where we are should be telling us, we even in the committee signed and said this is wrong. And that minority report must come up to the floor of the House. If we don't have any of those, can we stop playing politics on the gallery, lying to Kenyans that we are doing the right thing, yet we know, oh, we have already passed it in the committee. So after all, even if I don't say it here, or if you see me shouting, it is wrong. And that is one thing I've been telling, I've been asking myself in the 13th Parliament. You come on the floor of the House, you find both of us, both sides, we are talking, but we already finished it in the committee, for heaven's sake. So why can't we agree? We've agreed with the matter at the committee. And if we have not agreed at the committee, going forward 2024, I want to see these departmental committees giving us minority reports so that when we come here, we can, even an alternative bill. If I say this bill is wrong, then the whole leadership of the side we are saying it is wrong must be having an alternative bill to Kenyans to say, if it was us, we would be doing this.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Lotte.
Well, thank you. I strongly believe that deterrence is something that we require as a nation. There are countries in the East that if you're found in aspects of corruption, you are not only arrested, but you are also prosecuted and persecuted for being in that country. And I think unless we reach that point, all the things that the bicameral house, which I think 13 years we've worked together and we've jail, and now we know what needs to be done between the Senate and the National Assembly. If we have jailed and we've now known and we've come up with laws, and there is no prosecution of the people that have actually embezzled funds.
It's a waste of time.
Which is going to be a waste of time, because we will know, we will make all this noise, we'll bring all these people to the fore, and they will be walking with you next in the streets. So for me, I'll say, Kenyans, and I think Kenyans listening to me today wants to see that there is prosecution. They want to see that people are going to jail. Big people, big fish. We've actually been looking for this big fish. We only small fish going to jail. If we see this big fish going to jail, and then everybody will start to become afraid, and very afraid of holding and misusing public funds. Until that is done, both the houses will only make noise. They will all make their committee reports. They will all say all these things. But unless deterrence is put into place, we will talk about.
Thank you, Honorable Lotte. Let's now sample the feedback and equally hear what Kenyans have said on hashtag Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. The first one from Remy Bute, he says the PFM Act creates a system of accountability in the sense that there are people who are given clear responsibilities for certain things and face clear sanctions for failure to follow the rules. No law can create accountability by itself. Babu Michelle K says the Auditor General has been, he means, raising serious audit issues time to time in the national government and the county governments, but in return the repeat falls on deaf ears and nobody seems to be concerned about the loss of public money. They continue eating. Janelle Azaro says audit report exposed weaknesses in legislation and oversight roles. Our party means Parliament has failed. Otherwise, newfound truce between President William Ruto and Odinga is an indication of mature democracy. We can differ on principles and still solve our issues. Sir Nixon Ndugure says Auditor General's report should not only be handed to Parliament and the relevant county assemblies, but also the DCI, who shall act immediately on organised and economic crimes found within the report. Hashtag Daybreak. Cyprian _Masika says it's time for our legislature to fight for and protect the sovereign Wananchi's interests by standing firm and protecting our available resources given the current economic suffering. It should benchmark best practices such as the United States Parliament. Frank Orinde says the current Parliament, both National Assembly and the Senate, can't check on government excesses. They have been clipped by the executive and reduced to only rubber stamped what the executive wants, stooges for lack of a better word. Unnamed Ruto Museveni Raila indicates that Kenyans should refrain from political emotions. How come public enemies are eating on the same table when their interests converge? Poor people should stop fighting and fight their problems. Godi Barasawere says the KK administration should not blow hot and cold at the same time on the resuscitation of our economy. We cannot practice austerity measures as citizens for the government to engage in unnecessary spending and wastage. And Banji Tuni says 99.99% of people who join politics or civil service or appointed into public offices, majority do it to loot and get rich quickly. No one joins to just make people's lives better. A_Musau says as long as corruption cases in Kenya continue taking 10 to 15 years to be heard and determined, we will never go anywhere. I am Kakaidu says the Auditor General reports should make the government worry much. It's so saddening that those making budget would think of budgeting for themselves. It makes one wonder if some people really care about this country. It's so sad, he says. Erel Wama says President Ruto has always had a soft spot for Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Seeing President Ruto lobbying for Right Honorable Raila Odinga, he says, makes me proud to be a Kenyan. Long live Kenya. Vive l'Afrique. God bless Kenya. And that French word. Thank you, Senator Richard Onyonka. Your time is appreciated. Thank you, Honorable Beatrice Alachi.
Thank you.
MP Dagoretti North Constituency. And thank you, Honorable Titus Lotte, Kacheliba Lomeka, and to Honorable Veronica Maina, who is a nominated senator. And this, as well as you had proposed accountability, is an accountability show that we do here on Citizen Television to look for answers at the best interest of the Kenyan people, who are the constant factor in all this equation. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you for the gender balance.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you.